Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you are well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories. And if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. And let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Additional Door 3206 and it says, am I the arsehole for kicking out my girlfriend and her son after she invited her ex into our home? Throwaway account. Me, 35 male, and my girlfriend Sarah, 35 female, have been together for 4 years. She has a son, Nathan, 9 male, with her ex, Mark, 36 male. Sarah has full custody of Nathan with her ex having scheduled visitations one weekend of every month. Sarah and Nathan moved in with me a little over a year and a half ago, and in my perspective, it was a little rocky at first. I've always been pretty protective of my space, so making room for 2 other people was difficult for me. When Sarah moved in with me, we agreed that visitations for Mark would be held in our apartment as long as I'm home. The main reason I wanted this is because I don't know Mark that well, and I don't want him wandering around our apartment without me there. When we proposed this idea to Mark, he was fine with it. Now moving on to the real issue. 3 weeks ago marked 4 months since Mark's last visit, so I'd asked Sarah when he was planning on visiting Nathan. My girlfriend replied by shrugging her shoulders and telling me she'd ask. She never followed up with it. So a few days ago I asked when Mark's next visit was, and Sarah said she'd tell me when she knew. Nathan was in the living room but apparently overheard us and shouted something along the lines of, "Dad was here last weekend, remember?" Sarah's face immediately dropped. When I asked what Nathan meant, she wouldn't give me a direct answer. Eventually, she ended up telling me that for the past 2 visits, Mark had been to our apartment when I was working. When I accused her of going back on our agreement, she kept telling me this was her home too, and she could invite whoever she wanted, and that it was fine because she was here and watching. I told her that was besides the point, and she violated my trust. It blew up into a huge argument, which ended in me telling her to get out of my apartment. She packed up and left with Nathan. Last I heard, she was staying with her parents. I've gotten several messages from both Sarah and her parents calling me an arsehole for kicking Sarah and Nathan out of their home for something so small. She's even been blasting me on Instagram and Facebook about how horrible I am to do this to her. It's got me thinking that I might be the arsehole, but I'm not entirely sure yet. Am I the arsehole? PTA, I can see why it's important, but the court order was instructed because of Mark having a criminal record. I'm not sure what it's for as Sarah has never directly told me, and I didn't want to push her to tell me. So, OP added some additional information below this post in the form of replies. The first one said, the reason the visitations are scheduled with Sarah, or a police officer, is because of Mark's record. I wasn't told specifics, but when Sarah and I were going for the visitations last year, Sarah brought it up fairly briefly. I always wondered what it was, but I didn't want to push my girlfriend to talk about it if she didn't want to. She couldn't tell me to leave. My name is the only one on the lease. I only call it our apartment because that's what it was. We were all living there, but legally mine was the only one on the lease and had been for years. As for traumatic for Nathan, he was pretty happy that he was going to see his grandparents, though I'm not entirely sure he realized they wouldn't be back. I work a job that requires me to fly out twice a month for a few days. Most of the time these land during the weekdays, but unfortunately the last few have been during weekends. My work trips are not scheduled by me. To keep it simple, at the start of month 1, my boss will send me an email telling me what days I'll be scheduled and where. Recently, however, it's mainly been on weekends rather than during the weekdays. At the start of month 1, I'd let my girlfriend know when I was working so we could figure out when Mark would come over. The last 2 trips only took up 2 weekends and left 6 available. And there was a fair few comments along the lines of everyone sucks here, you're the arsehole, which we'll get to in a second, but I kind of didn't feel that way if I'm being completely honest. Maybe I'm wrong. If Mark's criminal record is serious enough that the court has supervised visits for his kid, you know, that's red flags for me. And in the end, they both came to this agreement that OP would be in the house when Mark turns up. They both agreed to that. Sarah went behind OP's back to do this, to allow him into the house. I mean, kicking them out immediately seems like quite a big step, but I don't blame him for being pissed off at the same time. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to know your thoughts on this one as well. The commenter says to OP, "You're the arsehole, and I will tell you why. You're living with a woman I assume you care about and trust, yet you say her ex can't come pick up their child at your shared home. Does that mean that nobody can come visit her when you're not home? What if her son has a friend come over to play? Technically, it's her home as well. The fact that you threw her and her son out is just horrible. You should be ashamed of yourself." OP says according to the court order, Mark is allowed to take Nathan out during his specified weekend as long as Sarah accompanies them. Of course, Sarah can invite other people when I'm not there, but I don't trust Mark. Another commenter says, "Everyone sucks here. You're being an arsehole for saying they can't have him over without you there. If Sarah's home too and she should be able to have anyone over she wants. You're also an arsehole for kicking her and her kid out over this. That's an extremely shitty thing to do. Sarah is in the wrong for lying to you, telling her son to lie to you, and for going back on your agreement to only have Mark over when you were there without informing you." OP says, "I'm not entirely sure if she told Nathan to lie for her, as he was at school the last time we had discussed it, and he jumped to say something fairly quickly this time." Another commenter says, "You're tentatively the arsehole. This is not just your home, or it wasn't just your home, it was their home too. Nathan has a right to see his dad and Mark has a right to see his son, no matter how shitty he is. I have first-hand experience. If you have made a family home, you can't just demand things because it belongs to you. It sounds like everyone was trying to keep to your rules and hid stuff from you because you're being an arsehole." OP says, "I'm fully aware that it was our home, but it was solely mine before that. There was only one thing that I asked for when she moved in, and it was that I would be here while Mark was here." A downvoted comment says, "Everyone sucks here." Then it says, "You're the arsehole. You seem very controlling. Also, you have both lived in the apartment for over a year, which means it's both your apartment now, and she does have a right to treat it like her home and not have to ask you for permission for everything. Also the arsehole for kicking them out without trying to work on the relationship. I know she broke your trust, but to so easily kick her and her son, which you clearly don't care about too much, seems very harsh. She's also the arsehole because she should have spoken to you about wanting to change the original agreement, and it does seem weird that she was lying and hiding it so much. Although since you are controlling in your reaction to it, maybe she was just scared. You both might be better off without each other, but I do feel sorry for the son. But you don't seem to miss him, so hopefully your ex finds someone who loves them both." OP says, "Thank you for your input, but I feel the need to correct something quickly. Sarah has other people she brings over when I'm not there, and I'm completely fine with that. It's just that I don't like Mark, who has a criminal record, to be in my home with all my things when I'm not there. Don't get me wrong, I do miss Nathan. He's a very happy kid most of the time, but he's not mine. He didn't call me dad, a decision I respect, and we didn't have a super close bond either way." Spinal Tap says, "Legal word of warning. If you're in the UK, she could have been using you for the place. She can claim domestic violence and change the locks and move in the ex, and you wouldn't be able to do anything about it." OP says, "My landlord is a family friend and I'm fairly good friends with his son, as well as a few of our neighbors. I've been living here the longest and I'm not too worried about her claiming DV. I'm having someone come over tomorrow to change the locks, and I've already asked my landlord if I can fix the camera on my door." So it was about a week after this that OP did come in with an update and said, "I know it's fairly early in the morning whilst I'm posting this, but I got off the phone with my ex and figured you all deserved an update. First off, I wanted to thank all of the feedback and comments I got on my post. I didn't think it would get that much attention, but here we are. There are a lot of different opinions on who was in the wrong, but after going over a ton of them, I realized I wasn't as non-assholery as I thought. Now on to the update. I'm sure that's what a lot of you came back for. It's not too exciting, so I'm sorry in advance. Firstly, on Monday, I had a locksmith come by in order to change the locks, which I got the go-ahead from my landlord, and I ordered a new door camera that should be coming in sometime next week. After that, I hadn't heard from my ex until Tuesday, when she called me from a number I didn't recognize, her mother's, in order to apologize. She started crying over the phone, begging me to take her back and that she had made a mistake and how awful it was being back at her parents' house. She complained that everything was a mess and that there was a smell she hated. She even promised to never bring Mark over again as long as she could move back. I ended up telling her that she had lost my trust and I wasn't going to move past that simply because she was having a difficult time at her parents' house. I told her this was a consequence for breaking the one thing I asked her to do when she moved in, when she realized I wasn't budging. It's like a switch has been flipped. She started screaming at me using lots of colourful language I won't be repeating here. Among the list of swears, she told me I had no right kicking her out of her home, that I was criticizing her as a parent, that I was manipulative and ignorant, and that nobody would ever love me because not even she loved me. Before she hung up, she told me she'd get me evicted and take my apartment from me. I blocked the number after. I ended up emailing my landlord in order to see if there was any way she could get me evicted. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in my post, but I've been pretty good friends with his son for a while. He ended up calling me and laughing about the whole situation, telling me that legally she has no grounds to stand on, since her name was never on the lease. According to him, she was simply a live-in guest until her name was added. Thank goodness it never was. Which brings us to earlier this morning, when my ex woke me up to call me, this time from her father's number, and repeated most of the things I listed above. Apparently she had contacted my landlord and he had hung up on her. Thank you, David. By the end of it, I told her to stop contacting me and that we were over for good. I blocked her father's number as well. It's not the most exciting update as I said earlier, but it's what happened. Some people in the comments suggested to talk to my landlord, which is what I ended up doing. So thank you to those people. And again, there was a mix of comments below that. Some people mentioning, controlling type behavior. Other people saying they don't get why there's loads of "you're the arsehole" or "everyone sucks here" comments, and they completely get where OP was coming from. And they were curious about what Mark had done to get himself a restraining order where he had to have supervised visitations with his own child. But what do you guys make of this one? What side are you on? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. Now our next story is from Old Man Reddit Throwaway from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit, and it says, "Am I the arsehole for buying my niece a car and not my nephew?" Hey, I'm an old guy who has never posted on Reddit, but at the urging of my niece and nephew, I'm going to attempt to post this here. So I, 50 male, have a niece and nephew who are both 18 and just graduated. A few years ago, when they were entering high school, I made a deal with them. If they kept a B average their entire time in high school, I would buy them any car of their choosing, within reason of course. We added a clause that they got one semester forgiven, so they were able to mess up one semester and I wouldn't hold it against them. I felt like 7 to 8 semesters with a B average was pretty fair. So my niece maintained her grades. She did mess up her sophomore year, but otherwise was right on track. My nephew, on the other hand, pretty much never did right. We were lucky that he even passed every semester. I offered help, tutors, books, tried to make sure he was okay mentally, whatever he needed. But turns out, he just straight up was not doing his work. He was doing good on tests, but would never do his actual work, resulting in his grades being low. So last week, when my niece got her car, she chose a 2025 Toyota Camry. My nephew kept asking when he was going to get his, and I told him he didn't stick to his end of the agreement, so he did not get a car. He still got a very nice gift back at graduation. Now, him and his mum are angry with me and saying I'm favoring my niece, and now he is refusing to speak to me or his sister. I don't think I messed up, but I'm starting to worry. Am I the arsehole? But a commenter says to OP, not the arsehole. If you had given him the car, he'd be learning that he will get what he wants, even when he doesn't stick to the deal. Another commenter says, OP, on behalf of the rest of society, I would like to thank you for enforcing standards with your nephew, since apparently his parents will not. Mayhem says the problem is not just the nephew, but the nephew's mother. In fact, the mother is a bigger problem who has encouraged this lazy, entitled behavior. She could have put a lid on it by telling the nephew that he did not earn the car. His lack of effort cost him the car, so if he wants to blame someone, then he needs to look in the mirror and blame that person. Clean Patient says, if someone had offered to buy cars for each of my twins if they kept their grades up, I would have been grateful to OP for paying for one car for the twin who fulfilled their end of the bargain, and I would have told the other twin to sit down, be quiet, and learn to work harder, because the loss of a new car was on them. Sleepy Hedgehog says, not the arsehole. They both knew the deal, and your nephew chose to slack off. Even after you went out of your way to support him and keep him on track, you even considered his mental health, which is more than a lot of parents, mine included, would have done when grades started slipping. You stuck to your word, and he learned a valuable lesson. It also would have been incredibly unfair to your niece if all her hard work had been undermined just to reward her brother despite his lack of effort. So it was 3 months later that OP came in with an update and said, "Hi peeps of Reddit, I wanted to give an update because a lot has happened." So first I sat down with my nephew and his mum to talk it through. I explained that this was the deal he agreed to before starting high school, and that he has known for years he was not getting the car. Some comments say I led him on, which was not the case. He'd been aware of not getting the car for years, and that his sister followed through. He did not. Well, all of that to no avail. He was still sulking and pretty angry. His mum felt I ruined his summer because he couldn't drive himself around, and because he refuses to speak to his sister. She won't drive him either. I then discovered that my niece was being punished at home because she would not let nephew drive or ride in her car. I told him I was not forcing her to, and it pretty much turned into a fight between me and sister-in-law. Also, to address a few comments I got, my nephew still got a very nice grad gift from me, and he does not have any learning disabilities like comments suggested. And also, he'd been aware he was not getting a car for around 3 years. As for my niece, she's been nothing but grateful. It was planned for her and her brother to move in with me, but only she has. I've not heard from or seen my sister-in-law or nephew in about a month. They also have both blocked and cut off my niece, which has been hard for her. Me and my wife are working on getting her into therapy, but otherwise, she is doing fine and we love having her. So things are still hard, but we are all working through it. Thanks everyone for all the advice. Commenter says, "Why are they planning to move in with you?" Opie says they both planned to move in with me when they graduated, purely because my house is bigger and they wanted a change of environment. I don't know, I found that pretty odd, but hey, Benjamin says, "What else are you doing for her? They're starting to feel like you can provide them a lifestyle their parents can't, and she's taken advantage and her brother is jealous and bitter he's not benefiting. I don't blame you for sticking to the agreement with nephew as long as it was clearly laid out from the beginning. And for him to treat you this way after you still got him a nice gift is just spoiled kid behavior. Oh, and shame on your sister for not sticking to any principles or standards." Opie says my nephew is still welcome to live here if he apologizes. I was always going to pay for both of their college or weddings, whichever they choose. They'd known this their whole life. I'm paying for niece's college and I still plan to pay for nephew's wedding. My sister-in-law isn't super well off, but by no means is she struggling. She could easily afford a car for him. She's just too cheap to do so. Niece also is not paying to live here. Yep, it's been clear since day one, which is why I don't understand why they're behaving this way. Big Metal says, "Thank you for setting a standard and following through. Both nibblings were given a valuable lesson, though clearly only your niece learned it." Another commenter says, "And now the mum is being petty and vindictive towards her own daughter. No wonder the nephew thought he could get the car without doing absolutely nothing." Commenter says, "He didn't do the work to get the car. She did, and now him and his mum are pouting and throwing a fit over it. Their behavior is so disgusting. I would never want to help them again. It really sucks that your niece did the work, is responsible and appreciated the gift you gave her, and yet she's been ostracized by a selfish, ungrateful mum and brother. Hope you never help your nephew and his mum out, ever. Favoritism towards male children is such an issue. I'm glad you're not part of the problem, and I'm glad you're a safe landing for her to get away from her disgusting mum and brother." And there was a lot of people talking about the nephew being the golden child in this situation. A lot of people saying good on OP for being a good uncle and holding those standards. And people just saying that the mum and brother just sound super entitled within this story. But what do you guys make of this situation? How would you feel about it if you was in it? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being here, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.